So now let's talk about projected and true dimension types. So here in this drawing we have three different views including an isometric view. Now adding dimension in a simple orthographic view like this one and on an isometric view is quite different. When you add a dimension on an orthographic view, basically it will show the true dimensions because the sheet as well as this view, they are both parallel. So the distance from this center to this center along this line will be exactly equal to whatever the dimension will show. But if you try measuring the same thing in this isometric view, well, the result will be different. Now let me show you how it works. So I'll go to Smart Dimension and I'll first start with this. So I'll just select this hole right here and then I'll select this hole and I'll add the dimension, not the vertical one, but just along these two circles. So I'll just make it like that. And as you can see, the distance is 118.58. Now let's add one more dimension. Maybe I'll add the dimension for this face. So I'll just select it and I'll add one right here. So as you can see, we now have two dimensions and these two are the true dimensions of this part. We can add actually one more dimension here, maybe one for this one. So from this point to this, I'm adding this dimension here. Now I'm deliberately choosing this edge and not this one because this is the edge which is clearly visible here in this isometric view. So we have three dimensions here. Now let's try adding the same dimensions on this isometric view. So I'll just start with this hole. So select the first hole and the second hole, and now I'll add the dimension here. Now as you can see, it is just adding the vertical dimension or the horizontal one, and if you add the inclined one, that's not exactly equal to, well, this one. It's 118.58, but this is 80.41. Now if you try the same thing with maybe this edge, well, the result is again different. It's 21.23, and once again if you try adding it for this side, well, from this edge to maybe this edge right here, well, once again the result is completely different. So as you can clearly see, the problem here is the way these views are represented. Here the dimension is true because the plane of sheet as well as this drawing is, well, parallel, but in this case we are not measuring the actual distance. This dimension is just measuring the distance between these 2 points with respect to this sheet and not with respect to part. What I'm trying to tell here is this: if you make any sketch connecting these points, for example, if you make a sketch connecting these two centers, this center with the center right about here, which is not highlighting, so I'll just hover it here and I'll click, then length of this line should be equal to this one. And if you delete this view, the line will still remain here and the length of this line will still be 80.41. So this line has no relation with respect to this view, and that's what this dimension is doing. It's not measuring the distance along the part, but actually along this view in this parallel direction, not in this isometric direction. And that kind of dimension is called projected. So what's the solution? Well, whenever you're drawing and your drawing sheet, they are both not parallel. In that case, you can use the true dimension type instead of projected. Now let me show you what that is. But before that, I'll simply select this view. And when you do that, the drawing view property palette will show up. Here you'll see the dimension type. So dimension type is selected as projected, and we have the projected one for this case as well. So if you select projected or true in this case, the result will be exactly the same because both the planes are parallel. But in this case, selecting one or another type of dimension will show dramatically different results. For example, projected is showing completely wrong dimensions, but now I'll change it to true. When you change it to true, SolidWorks will show you this error message, and basically it's telling you that these dimensions will be deleted because they are projected. So select yes and all the dimensions will now delete. All right, now if you add the dimension in this view, it will add the true dimension with respect to your part and not with respect to the sheet. So let's add it again. So I'll just go to annotation, Smart Dimension, and once again I'll start adding the dimension. So I'm not going to select this line, rather I'll just select this edge and then I'll select this edge right here. And now, well, it looks like I somehow missed this, so I'll just select it. So we have got this edge and I've got this edge here, and now the length here is 118.58, which is exactly equal to the length right about here. Now if I select this edge here, well, that length is once again, well, 26, exactly equal to this one. And if you select this view, well, that should be same. So from this point to this point right here. So now as you can see, we have 53.93, which is exactly equal to, well, this dimension. So now with this true dimension type, well, the result will be same because now we are using the actual dimension value. So which one should you use? Well, you can go with projected because most of the dimensions that we add is usually added on orthographic view, and we rarely add dimensions in this kind of isometric view. So if you are not adding dimensions on isometric or any tilted view, then projected is just fine. But if you are adding dimensions on tilted views, then it is better if you use the true dimension type. Now another thing that I want to show here is related to the thread display. So before that, I'll just delete all these dimensions, and now let's see, well, the threads that we have here. So if I zoom into this drawing, you'll notice that we have all these cosmetic threads and they are kind of clearly visible in the drawing. Now if you select the view, you will get an option of selecting the type of thread you want to display. So if you have created cosmetic threads, then you can select either high quality or draft quality. With draft quality, you'll get this kind of thread symbol right around the part holes. But if you select high quality, well, that's going to show the actual thread here and no 2D representation for the thread. So that's the difference. Now, in some cases, even after adding the cosmetic thread, they may not show up here. And even if you select high quality or draft quality, it may not show up here. Well, that's because you need to activate it in the document settings. So to activate this, go to this document properties using this option, select document property, and here select detailing. Now in the detailing, you need to activate this option, shaded cosmetic thread. So in the display filter, this should be checked. And you can also check this cosmetic thread and reference dimension. And if you want to keep all of these displays on, simply check this one, display all types, and it's going to just select everything. You can uncheck this and then choose what to show and what not to. But in this case, I'll keep display all types checked and click OK. And now the thread will also show up in the drawing.